And we are live. Hey, everybody, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us for this National Recruitment Federation Lunchtime Live, sponsored by Fenero. I'm Donal O'Donoghue, NRF President and Managing Director at Sanderson. And today I'm delighted to be joined by David O'Reilly, who is Director of Tax at Fenero. Fenero are an award-winning contractor solutions and tax expert business. They have a team of about 40 people and they handle over 100 million euros annually in contractor payments. Now, in addition to everybody that is joining us live in our Zoom webinar today, we're broadcasting on LinkedIn Live, YouTube, and Twitter. So wherever you're joining us or watching from today, you're very welcome. The topic is contracting, a guide to career planning and generating wealth. And this is a topic that isn't often discussed, but is vitally important to people who've chosen to work as professional contractors, freelancers, business consultants, and those people that are interested in developing a portfolio career. Choosing to work as a contractor increases your ability to not only increase your income, but to actually generate wealth. And today's discussion is really built around that wealth generation strategy. So before we get into the conversation with David, I want to just say that the legislation and the tax advice that will be discussed today relates to Ireland, which is where we're going live from. So if you're joining us or viewing from another country, please check with your local tax advisor to learn about similar or equivalent legislation or initiatives which may operate in your country. So to kick off, I'm going to just hand over to Dave to get a bit of an understanding about the context in Ireland that pertains to taxation for professional contractors. How are you, Dave?
Thank you very much, Donal. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for having me here today. I'm very well. Every day that I get to talk tax puts a smile on my head. So today's a good day. And just for everybody on the webinar, if you have any questions, please submit them through the Q&A session, a section at the bottom of your screen. Hopefully we can answer the question during the presentation, and if not, we'll do a little Q&A session at the end. And if we don't get to them, I'll try to respond to you separately. So in terms of the backdrop to today's presentation, Ireland has quite high levels of income tax and is also highly progressive. So what that means is people pay higher levels of tax quite quickly in Ireland compared to other EU countries. So we have the most progressive tax system in the EU. Why am I telling you this? It's because it has a massive burden of building wealth. So the more tax a person pays, the less ability they have to build wealth. We had the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar on the weekend saying that the high levels of tax in Ireland could be a deterrent in attracting talent to Ireland in this remote working environments that is coming. The same is true for keeping talent in Ireland. So if somebody can work in Mayo, they can also work in the Algarve. And sure, the weather might be a little bit better in the Algarve, but the crack won't be as mighty. So our job is to keep them in Ireland, and there are ways to do that. So there are ways to reduce a person's effective tax rate, especially if we can take a long-term structured approach to it. We can manage someone's effective tax rate over a long period of time, especially if they're a professional contractor and perhaps operating through a personal service company. So there's hope, and today's presentation is to give you some tips, give you some tricks and advice on how to manage your wealth if you're a professional contractor or if you are a recruitment consultant, to be able to give some advice to candidates who are new to contracting and perhaps not happy with the levels of tax that they might be paying.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And what's interesting as well, Dave, is that sometimes people make the choice that they want to become a professional contractor, and sometimes contracting chooses them. Because what can happen is that if you start your career, most people start their careers as a permanent employee of an organization. And regardless of what skill set you build up, whether you're working in IT or finance or marketing or procurement or whatever your particular area is, there can come a time where you get to a point where you realize that your skill set has a value in the market and that you can maximize that value. Now, that's an instance where somebody makes the decision that they'd like to work in a task-focused contract role. And also what can happen sometimes is that because you've got a particular skill set that's of value, a recruitment consultant or a talent acquisition person might reach out to you and say, look, we've got this opportunity and it's on a day rate contract. Is it something that you'd consider? So sometimes people choose contracting. Sometimes contracting chooses the individual based on their skill set. So in those circumstances, usually what attracts the person to contracting is that there's a premium. You know, as a professional contractor, you'll get a very attractive or a lucrative day rate that's, you know, often, you know, 25, 30, 40% higher than what your permanent salary may have been. And in those circumstances, we would often, as recruiters, recommend to the contractor, or to that person that's new to contracting, that they start off providing services through an umbrella company, you know, a preset or an already incorporated entity that's quick and easy to use. But just for the benefit of people that are watching that are maybe considering contracting, or for recruiters that are interested in talking to potential contractors about the different solutions that are available, could you kind of outline some of the different options that are available, you know, from umbrella to personal service company, etc.?
Sure. As the backdrop to Ireland, in Ireland, for people going professional contracting, they have to use a limited company. So that really means they have two options. And as you mentioned, Donal, they can use an umbrella company, which is essentially this company already in existence, sitting there waiting for the contractor to come along. It'll issue the invoices for the work they do and pay them. So they're really good. They're excellent for people new to contracting. The issue is they don't have a lot of tax planning opportunities or wealth building opportunities built into them. Sure, you can claim expenses, which are really good. And you can make really good pension contributions. For that juicy kind of tax planning opportunities, they're not really available through an umbrella company. Whereas the second option is the personal service company. This is where the individual owns that company and it's just them operating through it. And this option does give that tax planning and wealth building opportunities. There is a couple of caveats. I like to see the individual knowing that they're going to contract for 12 months and have a daily rate. We want to have a daily rate of €400 plus to take full advantage of the tax planning opportunities that this option provides.
Okay. I think the other thing that's quite interesting is, in terms of the other thing that's quite good about the umbrella company, is that it's kind of it's a relatively low commitment model, isn't it? Because what I always think, if you're thinking about, if a recruiter phones you up and says, look, I've got an opportunity for you, it's a really attractive day rate, and you think, okay, look, I might be interested to see if I'd like to work as a professional contractor. The fear that most people have is about continuity of opportunity. Or, you know, if I do this contract and I'm making, as you said, maybe 500, 600 euros per day as a daily rate professional contractor, what happens at the end of the contract? Do I then have to look for a permanent job, or will I have continuity of opportunity? So later in the call today, we can talk about how contractors build that continuity of opportunity, which I think is important to make the decision as to whether you stay in that umbrella setup or whether you transition into a different personal service company setup as well.
It's a great point, Donal, because initially when we get the phone call from the candidates, especially if they've never contracted before, we try to get a picture of their personal circumstances so we can create a plan. And one of the questions we ask them is, okay, this is an initial 6-month contract. We know you don't have a crystal ball, but what's your plans after the 6-month contract? You're going to renew, you're going to go look for a new contract. And they don't know. So they're like, I don't know, I've never contracted before, I've never done this. So that makes it challenging for us to create a plan to minimize their taxes and to give them kind of a proper plan. Okay, this is the route you should go for the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. If the candidates come to us kind of with a little bit more, okay, I'm going to give this 2 years and this 3 years from a self perspective, that would really help or make our jobs a lot easier.
Yeah, and that's the big challenge for contractors. So like the advice that we would normally give them, Dave, is if you've taken on an engagement as a professional contractor for a period of time, there's a couple of benefits with it, as well as the fact that you make a premium and you earn really good money. And as well as the fact that if you're somebody that operates well in a task-focused environment, some people love the fact that they can actually remove themselves from the politics in an organization of being a permanent employee and could go in to deliver specific tasks, whether that's a program of work or a piece of project management or something like that. So I think there's certainly a benefit in that space. But one of the things that you've got to do then is you've got to build your profile as a professional contractor. So on your social and digital channels and on your CV, you've got to call it out. So on LinkedIn, for example, you've got to make it clear that if you're a business analyst or a project manager, that the terminology that you're using shows to recruiters in the market what your skill set is. So for example, if you're a developer or a software engineer, your LinkedIn profile has got to clearly call out the tech stack that you're competent with, preferably stack ranked in order of competence, and that you're a daily rate contractor or a professional contractor. So some of the wording about having contract, contractor, daily rate contract on your LinkedIn profile will help you to be found online by recruiters. And actually what you need to do is self-assess during the period of your first engagement. How many recruiters are reaching out to you about your particular skill set? Because if you have skills that are in demand and you create your shop window on LinkedIn, for example, you should have a good amount of demand coming through. And that will give you the confidence when you're then speaking to your tax advisor or your umbrella company provider to be able to have those conversations to say, well, look, I think when this contract ends, there's going to be plenty of demand.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
So moving on to the likes of, you alluded a little bit there to the ability to do some kind of tax planning if you're in, for example, a personal service company or your own limited company. Could you talk to us a little bit, Dave, about tax planning for professional contractors?
Yeah, I suppose before I jump into that, I think it'd be good to define what's the difference between income and wealth. So when we're referring to income here, it's the after-tax income. So it's the flow of money that goes into a household, but where the taxes are paid on it. And this differs from wealth, which is kind of savings or property, shareholdings, and pension pots. So pension pots are a great source of wealth in retirement. With the tax planning, I like to take the Tesco approach in that every little helps. So a little saving here, a little saving there, they all add up to hopefully kind of a significant saving over a longer period of time. In terms of the planning advice that we give to contractors, it starts off with basic stuff. So it's claiming the tax-free expenses. These are not groundbreaking advice. But it helps. So your home office expenses, your phone, your broadband, computer equipment, education courses and stuff like that, that all helps to reduce a person's overall effective tax rate. One that kind of I really love is pensions. So I struggle to think of a better way to extract money from a company in a tax efficient manner than pension contributions. The funds build up tax-free in the pension pot. You can take out a portion tax-free on retirement, and kind of it's a really good kind of tool to take money out of the company. A couple of the more juicy ones would be retirement relief. So retirement relief is where somebody can take out up to 750,000 tax-free from a company. Now there's some terms and conditions. So they have to be over 55 years old and have owned the company for 10 years. So Ireland's not that mature yet kind of in contracting, but we're going to see more kind of individuals availing of retirement relief. It's the 10-year kind of ownership that is the sticking at the problematic area for that.
Did you say 750,000, like $750,000 tax-free?
Tax-free, yes. Now, the company would have paid corporation tax in it, but in terms of income tax and capital gains tax, that's straight into your back pocket and happy days.
Okay. Provided you have shareholder funds, you've built up that shareholder funds in the entity that you're contracting through.
You build them up. So, and the advice that we give to candidates is, especially kind of those that kind of have one eye on retirement or don't need all of the income. Like these individuals, they're coming from a perm role, they're going to a contract role, as you say, typically it's 30, 40, sometimes 50% higher income than what they were earning in the perm role. So they have disposable income. And the question they come to us is with, what do we do with it? And the question we go back is, okay, how long are you going to be contracting for? The longer you contract for, the more tax planning opportunities are open to you. The retirement relief is great, 10 years. The one after that is entrepreneur's relief. So this one kind of is a cap of 1 million. So they can take out 1 million at 10% capital gains tax rate. So significantly less than the possible 52% be paying income tax on it. There are conditions on this one. They have to hold the shares for 3 years. So they have to be, the company has to be operating and trading for 3 years. But 3 years goes by quite quick. And it's a great way to build those funds up. There's a couple of other ones, which is kind of big purchase. So the company vehicle, if they're getting an electric vehicle, I like that one because the cost of the car in half, provided it's fully electric. Building a home office out back garden, or those office pods, quite expensive, or big expenditure items, so big education items and stuff like that possibly could be put through the company. So there's lots of facets to it.
So I guess the question then is, in terms of techniques and tools that a contractor can use to build up those shareholder funds or to build up the net assets in a company, because if they're in an umbrella company, you can't build up net assets because the contractors it's a vehicle for the contractors to be able to be paid, pay their income tax, claim their expenses, but that's it. So if they're in a personal service company, their own limited company, so have you got some tips in terms of what a contractor can do to build up those shareholder funds?
Yeah, I suppose, and I have some slides that I've prepared earlier, so funny enough. We can take a look at a couple of profiles. Before I jump into that, I might just take a look at the pension contribution, because it's kind of, pensions are a great way for taking money out of a company. And there's a difference between pension contributions that an employee can make and a professional contractor can make. So we take this example here. Somebody's 40 years old, they have a salary of 80,000 euro, and the normal retirement age of 65. So based on those rules, if they were to make a PRSA contribution, the max they can make in a year is 20,000, which is a lot of money. Under an executive pension, so an EPP, that amount increases to 56,000 in a year. So you can see kind of it's a massive difference in terms of getting money out. Last one is, if somebody was 50 years old, salary of 120,000 euro per year, under the PRSA, you're looking at 34,500 contributions per year, and that jumps to 138,000 per year with an executive pension plan. Now, a lot of factors come into this, so kind of their age, how much pension pot they have currently, and how many years they're going to be working. But it just shows that if somebody was to set up, coming towards the end of the career, they could set up a personal service company and really kind of keep their salary kind of to modest, and then kind of maximize the pension contributions. All right, profiles. So kind of quickly go through 3 profiles. So this is an individual seeking to get on the property ladder. This is a candidate that we assisted last week. So these are real figures here. So this is somebody from Cork last week. The gross salary was 48,000. They would have received 2,981 into the bank account. I'm going to ignore savings, although that would have come into our tax planning advice, just to keep things simple. They were offered a daily rate of 325, potential contractor income 74,000, so bit of a jump. Monthly net salary of 4,238. So this guy was very happy with the contract being offered to him, needless to say. These figures, they assumed that he was married, but kind of his spouse was working and the tax credits were split 50-50. We assumed average expense of 350 and the number of days worked was 230. So he wanted to work a lot of days. That gives him 21 days holiday and 9 public holidays. In terms of normal calculations, I like 225 in terms of the number of days worked, but this guy wanted to go with 230. So assuming that he wanted to keep his permanent salary, so he was receiving 2,981, wants to keep that and put the rest to a tax efficient use. Even off the bat, like if he was to take all of his income as salary through the umbrella company or the personal service company, he'd be up €1,200 per month. Annual increase per year, 15,000. So he'd be able to save 15,000 over and above his permanent salary just by taking up the contract role. But the question is, can he do better? So can he do better? And if we take a look at entrepreneurship, so if this individual was to build up those funds, so take out his permanent salary of 2,981 out of his company and let the rest build up. After 3 years, he could take out a lump sum of 63,251 into his bank account. If you left that to 5 years, it goes up to 105,000. So you see the kind of difference at the bottom. There's a significant difference between taking out a salary and using kind of a relief such as entrepreneur relief to get the funds out in a tax efficient manner.
So he has to, in this scenario, he has to dissolve the company at the end of that period of time, does he, to gain the entrepreneurial relief?
He does. And this is kind of with this individual kind of he would have to kind of close the company down and possibly kind of go back to perm. So he said, okay, I'm going to give contracting 3 years or 5 years. I want to build up kind of some wealth, and then kind of I want to go to this company up here, go back to perm, and then maybe switch and match.
Yeah. And then is there anything that, is there a period of time, like is there a number of times that you can claim entrepreneurial relief? Is it a once in a lifetime thing, or could in this, because this is amazing. Like I wasn't aware that in this scenario, somebody could come in and if they're, say, for example, in this case where they want to save for a deposit for a mortgage, and they go in as a contractor, they say, look, my previous perm salary was this, I can live on that. I want to build up as much shareholder funds in this entity as I can. And then they can take that out using the entrepreneurial relief. What does that mean for them after that? Does that mean that they can't gain, or they can't claim entrepreneurial relief again in the future, or that they can't contract again? What's the next chapter for that person?
Sure. So there's a 1 million cap on entrepreneurs relief. So, and this is a lifetime. I expect it will increase. So in the UK, there's £10 million. So we're quite low compared to UK, but it's a good start. So he can close down the company and he can open one up in the future, but you can't close down a company and then 1 month or 2 months time open up another one and kind of start the process again. There has to be gaps. So there has to be kind of a bona fide reason why you're closing the company down. And it could be simple. You're going back to permanent employment. For me, I'd like to see a minimum 12-month gap in between kind of company closing down and a company starting up. So you can't kind of just close one down and open one up the next day.
But that, like, even that, just that one scenario for somebody that's working as a professional contractor now, that, because I think what will happen a lot of the time, people will say, look, I'll take the contract role, I'll make the extra net €1,000 a month or €1,200 per month, and that will help me save. Whereas that is a very, very efficient way for somebody to really build up a cash pile for a deposit. That's excellent.
It gets better though. So second profile, this is kind of a little bit more mature in their career, high earner looking to build cash reserves. So this individual, again, these are real figures. Somebody kind of 72,000 for Java. So the net salary was €4,005 on ignore savings. They got a daily rate offer of 525. Potential contract income 120,000 and monthly net 6,000. So their net has increased over 50%. Again, I'm using the same assumptions from the previous one, 350 expenses per month and 230 days worked. So this one kind of not that kind of concerned about kind of the income, wants to maximize retention. So if they were to take out all of the income as a salary through the personal service company, their monthly would increase €2,000 per month, annual 24,000, and so forth. If they were to do entrepreneurs relief, you're looking at after 3 years, they close the company down 111,000, after 5 years, 185,000. So as the daily rates go up, the tax efficiency increases. And the last one, this individual is coming towards the end of their career. and they're really they're comfortable from an income perspective. The mortgage is paid off. The kids are grown up. They're a big biller, and they're looking okay. They don't really need the income, so they're focused on tax efficiency. So if they say okay, €750 per day, and we have a couple of these guys where we say you don't need income. What advice could you give us? So I'd say, okay, pay yourself a salary of 35,300. So that's the 20% tax band in Ireland. Anything over that, they're paying tax at 40%. That would give them a net salary of 2,436. The balance of those funds, they're going to build up in the company. Now, the company's going to pay corporation tax on it, but corporation tax is a lot lower than income tax. So if we take a look at this, after 3 years through Entrepreneurs Relief, they can take out into their hand nearly 300 grand. After 5 years, nearly 500 grand. And I wanted to do a calculation that gets the mill. So just, is it feasible that they're going to work 230 days every year for 10 years? No, not probable, but it's possible. After 10 years, going to be getting close to the million mark. In terms of how beneficial that way is compared to taking money all as salary, 3 years, they're going to save themselves 90 grand, 5 years, 150, and 10 years, close to 300 grand. So like somebody offers you 150 grand after 5 years, you say, thank you very much. So it is, it can be quite beneficial. There are alternatives. So again, somebody coming towards the latter end of their working career, pensions is a great way. So take out what you need, have a salary, and just lump money into the pension pot. It builds up tax-free. You're going to be able to take 25% of it tax-free from the age of 50. So that's not old. You can build a pot up to 2 million. So pensions are a great way. And you're the one that we mentioned earlier on. This is retirement relief. This is tax-free. So into your hands, it's a threshold. Though 750, you go over that 750, everything becomes taxable. There is margin relief and stuff like that. So it's not like the cap. You go over the 750, and it can cause problems. But still very very useful, especially for people who the career contractors who have companies 10 years. I'd be recommending the retirement relief as opposed to entrepreneur relief.
Actually, would you go back, would you mind resharing again to go back to the scenario there where you had the almost €1 million shareholder funds built up? Because I think this is a really interesting one, because we see quite a lot that when people have got to the stage where, say, for example, as you said, more advanced in terms of the career years, maybe they've worked 15 or 20 years and built up some very valuable skills, or maybe they're now moving into business advisory and the portfolio career. And I know that's a bit cliche to talk about portfolio careers, but if you're at a stage where you've done your 20 years of working and working across 3 or 4 different organizations, and you've built up your skill set, and you now want to monetize it. And if you're at the life stage where you're mortgage free or close to being mortgage free, maybe an empty nester, and you can realistically just have your day rate going into your personal service company and take out that salary, that 35K salary, like this is fairly impressive. But the debate a lot of people tend to have, Dave, I know what you're saying in terms of going the pension route as being quite a cost-effective or a tax-efficient way of doing it. But say, for example, you build up a pension pot, you can take, is it 25% of it tax-free once you've passed the age of 50? How much control do you have on the balance of that? Or are you thinking of that more as trying to build generational wealth? Or when you've taken that 25% lump sum payment, how much control do you have on the balance? Because for me, if I was building a portfolio career, I think the amount of control that you have leveraging the entrepreneurial relief or the retirement relief seems to give the individual more control. But I'm not a tax person, so you tell me.
It's obviously good for pension advice. I recommend you go to your financial advisor. From high level advice, you can have quite a lot of control. So you can take down 200. So there's 25% tax free. It's subject to a maximum of 200,000 lifetime limit. But the next 300,000 are 20% band. So you can take 500,000 out really tax efficiently. And then you put the rest into what's known as an ARF, and you can just draw that down as and when you need it. So it's not lumped into an annuity where kind of you get 4% a year and stuff like that. And you can put it into an NRF and draw down as and when you need it. Now, you will pay tax at your marginal rate. So it's not kind of, it's like being paid a salary. So you'll pay the tax rate for whatever kind of your level of income is. So once kind of it goes, once you go to ARF, then everything it's taxable coming out of it then.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
You have a lot of control over it.
Yeah, super stuff. Because certainly that's a perception I would have had, is that you've got that 25%, and then my perception was that you end up in that annuity situation with a lack of control. So that's good to know. But yeah, very solid. And what other challenges do you tend to see for contractors in when they're looking to generate wealth? Is it, do you have a recommendation for them in terms of how long they test out contracting as a, you know, through an umbrella solution? Because I always think that's a good place for people to start.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of umbrella companies. I might be a bit biased about it, but for people new to contracting, especially individuals we speak with, they don't know much about kind of where their career is going to go from a contracting perspective. So the umbrella companies are fantastic for dipping a toe in the water. They're really simple. Everything's done for them. And then kind of, if they like it and they're earning 400 plus per day, and you have disposable income, like there's no point in somebody setting up a personal service company if they're being paid 8,000 and they're going to draw that down as salary, everything as salary. You need to have a little bit of funds there to a little bit of wiggle room to do some tax planning with. Mm-hmm. And the contractors, they're getting more and more creative. So quite often what we see is they're taking down a salary, and then you have this pot, but they're not just leaving those cash in the company. They're getting their money working for them. And this is where you create wealth, is where you get your money working for you. Your money is earning money. So they're kind of investing in the stock market. Quite a few of them are kind of investing kind of in Bitcoin and kind of like cryptocurrencies, and they've made a fortune. Then they lost some of it, and then it's back up again. So they're to really create wealth. These guys are doing investments. They're averaging kind of maybe 6-8% return on those investments. Some of them kind of want to buy property, but I'm not a big fan of putting property into a company because there's a double taxation. But they're being more and more creative. So that's what we see kind of the new breed of contractors, where they didn't really do that kind of 6, 7 years ago.
And what about, because sometimes you'll hear contractors saying or talking about employing, for example, employing their partner, employing their spouse in the business. And then that's kind of bringing me on. There's a question that came in there from Robert Hurry, who asked the question, can each director take out 750K, or is it 750K in total per company? Because now the antenna is going up and thinking, oh, well, if I'm in the company and my partner is also providing some services in the company, has a salary and is a director, is there a double whammy there potentially?
So there is potential for each director to take out 750K through kind of the return relief, and also $1 million through the entrepreneur's relief. So it's possible to take out 2 million from a company. There's terms and conditions. So it's revenue's job to get money in, and they're very good at it, and it's good that they're good at it. So they create these reliefs, but there's anti-avoidance rules to make sure that they're not being abused, which is good. So, but provided both directors satisfy the rules, so they both own the shares for 10 years, you're both working in the company, you're both directors in the last 5 years, yeah, they can both take out the 750.
Wow, very good.
Where one of these challenges, because if you have a professional contractor, typically the contractor would work full time, and quite often a spouse might be the second director. But from the question is the second director working 100% of the business, or is the second director working 50% of the business? Because quite often, kind of the contractor would be carrying out the work on a day-to-day basis, and the second director may help with some administration and bookkeeping and stuff like that. So there will be a question of how much the second director is working in the business, but it's possible if they are. Yeah.
And I guess your tax advisor can advise on that kind of thing in terms of whether the person was employed elsewhere, or because, as you said, it's got to be genuine, and it can't be for avoidance. So, like, I suppose that's the question that some people would look at this now today. And I think, thank you so much for what you've put together, because I think some people would look at it and think, I didn't realize that there was the possibility to take out 750K or potentially $1 million per director. So, you know, people might look and say, is this all kind of kosher? Is it all above board? So, you know, in terms of the compliance piece, what's important for people to be aware of?
Yeah, I suppose there is anti-avoidance rules out there. Revenue kind of are quite good at kind of coming up with rules to make sure that people don't abuse these. So have a chat with your financial advisor, your tax advisor, to really map out, okay, I'm going to do this 5 years, and get them to run some illustrations. If you're taking down €40,000 as a salary and building the rest kind of, or leaving the rest of the company and building up, what are the potential reliefs that will apply in 3, 5, 6 years time, and what are the conditions that I have to satisfy? So as long as kind of you tick all those boxes, kind of you should be good.
Like, I'm thinking, just hearing about a lot of this is new information to me, and I'm thinking, rightly or wrongly, I'm imagining that the amount of people that are working as professional contractors that are using a personal service company in this way, I would imagine it's the lower percentage. Are most people that you see from your experience, you know, availing of these reliefs, or are most people using contracting as a way just to get a good day rate and to be able to claim their legitimate expenses?
Yeah, most people are focused on the income. So the majority of contractors that we have will be focusing on income, so increasing their income and enjoying it. They'd be paying into the pension pension, but not really. Very few will be taking this kind of 3-5 year approach, and probably ties back into creating a plan, a career plan in contracting. Just going to see a question there from Joe Byrne. How much of a tax saving is it when compared to income tax? Which is a good question. So the entrepreneur relief, the effective tax rate of taking money out of the company, you're looking at 30%. So because it's 10% capital gains, and the company will pay corporation tax at 20% on that. I know Ireland has a 12.5% corporation tax rate, but for professionals, there's a 7.5 surcharge. So any professionals taking money out through entrepreneur relief, it's a 30% effective tax rate. So we take a look at it and say, okay, you've got to pay 30% on here. Let's try and keep your salary to a 30% tax rate as well. Whereas kind of probably around 42%. So what we're trying to save them around 12%. And a salary of 30% tax rate, that's 60,000. So a single person receiving 60,000 gross salary, they pay 30% tax on the button. So keep your salary of 60,000. That's all 30%. Your entrepreneur relief money is at 30%. So they will not pay more than 30% tax on all of their income through the contract.
Very good. I think that's it. To go back to your previous point, Dave, I think is quite important. It's that strategic approach to contracting, because as we said at the beginning, some people choose contracting because maybe they're interested in the work. We definitely see that with a lot of IT professionals that are really interested in particular technology, particular tech stacks, or particularly some transformation or integration programs, and they almost follow the work. And being a contractor and having a lucrative daily rate is almost seen as being a good reward for following that work. So I think what's important to consider is that if you're working as a contractor and you've satisfied yourself that this can be a long-term opportunity, that you've got plenty of demand, plenty of continuity of opportunity, it's actually time to stop and to plan and to look at what are you trying to achieve. You know, whether it's cashing up for that potential deposit for a mortgage, or whether you're thinking about being able to build up that nest egg that you'll be able to take out of your business at a more efficient tax rate through some of the routes that Dave has discussed today. But I think it's certainly one of the things that contractors talk a lot about is autonomy, and about taking back control of their career, following the work they're interested in, removing themselves from office politics, and being able to know that they've gone into an organization, delivered a good piece of work, and then moved on to the next interesting project. I think this is definitely a way for people to take control of that ability to generate wealth and to operate in a compliant but tax efficient way. So that's a huge learning for me as well.
You hit the nail on the head. The more information contracting can give me, the better I can map out the future. and kind of, yeah, information is power, especially from a tax planning perspective. So if they take the time to map that out, especially as they come to retirement, we can kind of do a nice tax plan for them.
Yeah, because it's very easy. If you've kind of accidentally fallen into contracting, it's quite easy to enjoy the more lucrative daily rate, and then, you know, eating bread is soon forgotten. You know, you can build a habit there. Whereas,
they're living it up.
Exactly, you could be living it up. Whereas actually, if you have a plan, there's some really good elements available. And what I'd love to do, David, is to share some information maybe afterwards. So if anybody would like additional information, if you could email anna@nrf.ie, but we can definitely prepare some kind of a follow-up pack. If people want to contact you directly, Dave, where can they find you?
So if they reach out to the team at hello@fenero.ie, that'd be great, and we'll get back to them straight away.
Super stuff. Dave, great to see you again, and thank you so much. There's a lot of learnings here, and I think, you know, for myself as a recruiter and for the people within the National Recruitment Federation, just to be aware of some of these topics for having conversations with contractors is very valuable. And then, of course, we will point them in the direction of a tax expert for the full advice, but even for people to be aware that there's more to it than just living it up on the daily rate is really valuable.
Sure. Just it's got a request there. So it's hello@fenero.ie. It's got a request for to repeat the contact details.
Just one, before I let you go, Dave, there's just one quick question that's come in there that we haven't addressed from Joe Cottrell. Thanks, Joe. He says, David, could you please expand a bit on the electric car scenario and the garden pod and the office piece that you build in the home office or the garden office? What can be done on that again?
Sure. So the fully electric vehicle, there is 0% benefit kinds on purchase up to 50,000. So if you buy kind of a brand new fully electric vehicle, you don't pay any benefit kinds. So what does this mean? The company pays for it at a pre-tax income. So instead of kind of as a salary, you need €100,000 to pay for the 50,000. Now that exemption runs to December 2022, and revenue kind of are extended it. Will they extend it past that? I don't know, but if you don't, your company can sell the vehicle and kind of and deal with it that way. The garden pods, so you're probably looking at anywhere between 5,000 and 20,000 for these. And if you're working from home and you don't have the space internally, the company can pay for one of these garden pods out the back garden, again at a pre-tax income, cuts the cost in half of them. And the same true for building a home office out your back garden. This one's a little more complicated, so I'm going to give you the high level advice, but really kind of every situation is unique. So advice will have to be given on your personal circumstances. If you have somebody and they're planning to contract for the foreseeable future, so these guys are going to give 5, 6, maybe 10 years contracting through their own in the company. You don't have the space in the house. The company can build a office out the back garden and erect it, and that's all a pre-tax income. Some issues may come when you close down the company. So kind of a market value of the building would have to be taken down, or the company can dismantle it, but there's ways and means around that. I'm happy to give kind of advice to anybody on that.
Super stuff. Dave, thank you so much to yourself, to the team of Fenero for not only sponsoring the event, but for plenty of food for thought. Really enjoyable, really useful. And yeah, great to see you again, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you very much, Donal. Thank you for the opportunity to talk tax. Thank you very much for joining in. Have a good day,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. See you soon.
Cheers.